What's up, guys? Toad back with you as usual. 3-1-1 day yesterday, and it probably should have been 4-1-0. Is that right? The New Orleans Pelicans was a push, but they had that game, man. Towards the end, it looked like the Pelicans were probably going to be able to win that game. Try to adjust my mic here, and they did not quite get there, but that was looking like it was going to be a win on that one, and they wound up pushing in the end and losing by exactly 2. But overall, nice day. I'm in Florida, easy win there. Chattanooga was the one loss. I'm going to try to bounce back in college basketball. What am I right now? I think I'm 2-2-1 in college basketball, or maybe I'm 3-2-1. I don't know, but I want to get better there. NBA with a 1-0-1 last night. I think I'm at 7-7 or something like that. So I want to get better in both basketballs. And then that hockey over got there. It got into a shootout, but it would have been a push in regulation. But there was one late goal and then a shootout. So that was close. But, I mean, these hockey overs that I identify seem to get there very often. So I'll take it. Let's talk about today, man. This is going to be a huge card today. I don't even know where to begin, to be honest. We have a huge college basketball slate. I'm going to try to hit some of these games quickly. I don't know what's going on. BU and UCLA are still playing? What? I don't know what's happening on this pregame screen right now. That can't be right? I doubt it. I mean, that was one of the games last night, unless they, delayed the game or postponed it or whatever. I don't know. Whatever. Let's talk about the men's college basketball slate today. I will talk about these 2 huge games that I think are both neutral site games in one of these early season tournaments or whatever in Atlanta, Georgia. Kansas, Michigan State. I'm not playing this game. Kansas is -6.5 right now. This is the State Farm Championships Classic, man. State Farm. Jake from State Farm is going to be sponsoring this thing, or going to be the mascot for this thing, I should say. On this one, I actually lean to the Michigan State side slightly, but the line is up on Kansas or actually it's down from 6.5 to 6. But they have the cash on them, 92% of the cash, 67% of the tickets. In this one, man, I mean, I'm just not sure that Kansas is ranked appropriately here. They're ranked as the #1 team, and they're coming off a big win over North Carolina in a big ranked matchup. So I think they could be feeling a little bit plump and gay, if you might say, although they didn't blow them out. I mean, it was a close game, but they're coming off a big win. I mean, this is also a big game, but I think this game might be a little bit bigger for Michigan State. Michigan State tends to be kind of a sneaky team that flies under the radar, even though Kansas is the better team, but I don't think Kansas is the #1 team either, and they're trying to bounce back from kind of an injury-plagued end to last season. I don't even know how many of these guys they have returning, really, but I think Michigan State just tends to be a little bit of an undervalued commodity, and Kansas a little bit overvalued. Kansas coming off the big win, and remember, I'm thinking of North Carolina. Never mind. I was going to say this is also revenge for Michigan State, but it isn't, because Michigan State lost to North Carolina in the tournament. For some reason, I was thinking they were playing North Carolina, so scratch that. They're playing Kansas, but slight lean to Michigan State plus the points for that reason. I'm trying to quick hit these things, man. And then the other game in this arena, in this neutral location here in the State Farm tournament is Duke and Kentucky. #6 against #19 here. This is a situation where I like Duke in this one. Duke, I know, is laying points. Duke is up from 5 to 5.5. Not playing either one of these games, but Kentucky, I just think, continues to be overrated, man, because they're a really good offensive team. But this is just similar to last year right now, unless we see things change this season. You're looking at a Kentucky team that can score. They want to try to push the tempo, and their defense is terrible. But that's kind of a problem because Duke is nearly as efficient offensively, and Duke is the way better defensive team. So Duke is the way more balanced team here. So I just think Duke is the better team. I think Duke is probably somewhere close to a top 5 team. Kentucky is not a top 25 team in my estimation right now. If you look at Ken Pom, I think he's got them down at 38 or something because their defense is that bad. And when you have a game like this, neutral site with 2 good teams like this, a lot of times the team that wants to go up-tempo might not be able to do it if they're playing against a team that wants to really slow it down, which is Duke. I mean, at least that was Duke last year, I'm pretty sure. I think Duke still is going to try to do that, and it's a lot easier to slow the tempo down than it is to speed it up when you have a clash of styles like this. So I like Duke, but you're having to lay points with a better defensive team if you do that. Quick hitting, man. Let's try to hit these quick. I got a bunch of games. I was just going to talk about a bunch of the games that I was looking at. Villanova playing against St. Joseph's. This is one of those early season, like Philadelphia round robin things. I don't even know. I think this is a neutral site game. It might be at St. Joe's because this looks like a short line, man. On maybe this is at St. Joe's. It's at Michael Hagan 85 Arena. So St. Joe's is actually the home team here. St. Joe's is, of course, the little brother in the city of Philadelphia, so they usually step it up when they play Villanova, who's like the big basketball name in the city. St. Joe's, I think, beat Villanova last year, though, so Villanova might remember that, but this looks like a short line, man. Villanova, the big college basketball name, is only laying 3, up from 2.5, though, but it almost looks too easy to take Villanova in a way, and the public's probably going to come in on Villanova, so I like St. Joe's just because I think they're going to have a little bit more motivation just because they are the little brother. And they're coming off that ugly game that I lost on where they lost to Central Connecticut as a big favorite in the same arena, 16.5-point favorite. Maybe St. Joe's is looking ahead to Villanova. I thought it was a good spot for them to take care of business because Central Connecticut was coming off playing Providence really tough, but that wasn't the case. But yeah, I would lean to the St. Joe's side a little bit. And Villanova plays a very ugly style, one of the slowest tempos in college basketball. So you never really want to lay points with them, even though they're only laying 3 in this one, which isn't a lot. But St. Joe's, every team plays a faster tempo, but I'm pretty sure that St. Joe's plays a significantly faster tempo than, they're like 115 in tempo according to KenPom here. So they're a little bit, they're significantly faster, even though they're not like the fastest team. So at home, maybe that tempo will win out over Villanova's a little bit, although Villanova, still the better team, might be able to still slow it down. What else was I looking at? I was looking at William and Mary briefly. I kind of like the William and Mary side. They're up from Pick'em to 1.5, and it's going up further through the 1.5. This is against Norfolk State. I'm actually not sure which one of these teams. Well, the odds makers are kind of telling you if this is at William and Mary's home arena, the odds makers are actually telling you Norfolk is actually the better team, even though they're in the MEAC, and William and Mary, I think, are in the Colonial or whatever it's called. Now, I hate that they stopped calling everything Colonial just because, you can't call anything Colonial anymore, man. It's offensive to Native Americans, or okay, whatever. But Norfolk State actually might be the better of these two teams, but they're coming off a big win over James Madison, and that's an in-state big brother to them. But William and Mary, I think, is also considered to be an in-state big brother, even if Norfolk is the better team. Right now, Norfolk is at 3-0, but they played 2 non-Division I teams, and then they had a big win over JMU. So first true road game here. I think this is at William and Mary. They might not be as ready for this. William and Mary, not a very good team, though. Coming off a loss to Radford, though, and coming back home. This is going to be their Division I home opener because their other home game was against non-Division I team. So I do still think William and Mary is the right side in that one because Norfolk could be in a letdown spot, even though William and Mary is another big brother of theirs. I think James Madison carries more weight, and that was a nice little upset there for Norfolk State. Assuming it was an upset, I'm pretty sure it was. What else we got? Let's see. I was looking at IPFW, which I think is another one I did not play. Man, I got too many leans here, man. Stupid college basketball. Try to get through these games. I'm not going to talk about the other games that much. Let me see. IPFW, there they are. Against Bethune-Cookman. IPFW is up from 12.5 to 13. So I was looking at fading Bethune-Cookman because they're coming off playing Nebraska really tough as a big underdog. Bethune-Cookman, they're in the SWAC. They're one of the very low-tier teams in college basketball. They have faced a difficult schedule so far. Texas Tech and Nebraska. And in a slow-paced game, they kind of hung in this game with Nebraska as a big 23.5-point underdog. Nebraska shot a ridiculously low three-point percentage, 18.2%. So kind of an outlier of a low three-point percentage there. So not really a sustainable low three-point shooting percentage there for Nebraska, which kind of let Bethune hang around in that one. So I kind of lean against Bethune-Cookman playing a third straight road game here, going into IPFW. But then you look at IPFW, they're coming off kind of a decent performance as well, where I liked them to cover this number, and they did by like 1 or 2 points against UCF, because UCF was coming off a big game where they upset Texas A&M, a ranked team, although maybe a little bit of an overrated team. UCF, not a bad team. But Purdue, IPFW was an 11.5-point dog in this game. And they played this game tough almost the whole way. So they were also in a position where they almost pulled off a big upset as a double-digit dog. So I just don't want to lay the points with IPFW here either, even though that would be the way I would look here. They're up from 12.5 to 13, because I think Bethune-Cookman is coming off the more unexpected performance there, unexpected result. It's an even bigger underdog hanging with Nebraska there. So Columbia was another one I looked at. I think Lehigh is in a bad spot, so I was looking to maybe lay the 8.5 with Columbia. Looking at a lot of favorites here, but most of the games I actually am playing here are underdogs this time. Columbia, I mean, they're coming off a spot where I thought they were in a letdown, but it was against Delaware State, and Delaware State is just so bad that they just couldn't compete with Columbia. Columbia looking like one of the better teams in the Ivy so far this season, coming from out of nowhere, upsetting Villanova, although Villanova might be a little bit down. I mean, they're a team that was a tournament bubble team last year, and maybe they're headed for that again. I don't know. Columbia, although up against Lehigh, because Columbia showed something, man, in that spot that should have been a letdown spot. It's still performing pretty well. Lehigh is coming off 2 tough games, although it does mean they're battle tested. Like these teams that are coming off these big games, even though I think I'm playing against at least one of them, that it does mean they're still battle tested. But Lehigh just almost, they hung with Georgetown, and they were in this game late against Georgetown in the final minutes of the game. Wound up losing by 8 as a 14.5-point underdog on the road at Georgetown. So that was a big step-up game for Lehigh against a Big East team, and they almost pulled it off. They're playing a third straight road game here, and then they have to face UCLA up after this, which is another big name team there. UCLA was ranked, I think, until their most recent game, which I will talk about in a little while. So Lehigh, this almost kind of looks like a sandwich spot here, even though maybe they'll still show up focused, because Columbia is also a good team right now, 3-0, but in that stretch of 3 games, Columbia is the least of those 3 opponents. So Lehigh, just maybe they'll get caught here and maybe run out of steam after putting together a big performance against Georgetown, and actually including Northwestern. Columbia is the lesser of these 4 opponents mixed in there. So the lean would be to Columbia. And that one, and Columbia is coming off, like I said, an easier performance, so less effort in a game where I thought they were going to be in a letdown spot, and they were not. Let me see here. Arkansas State, I think, is also in a letdown. Man, I'm hitting a lot of these games. So I would lean to the Little Rock side, but Arkansas State's up from 12.5 to 14.5, going through the 14.5. So at the very least, you're going to get more of a price on Little Rock here, a bigger number if you want to take Little Rock here. Arkansas State, I don't like the spot they're in, because they just played Alabama pretty tough on the road, and this game was kind of within reach until late in the game, and this is like a tied game with the 7:08 left, so Arkansas State was kind of hanging around with Bama in this game. I think both of these teams like to play really fast, too, Arkansas State and Alabama. Now they're coming back home facing Little Rock. Little Rock, I actually think it may also be a fast-paced team, if I remember correctly, but so a lot of fast-paced teams here. Yeah, they also are, so every one of these teams likes to play fast, so I don't know. So all these teams kind of play at that same type of tempo, but I don't know, man. But when you're a team that's coming off a huge game where you put in that huge of an effort, and it's a game where everybody's running up and down the court against Alabama, are you going to be able to sustain an effort like that in another game where you're going to be running up and down the court again? Another fast-paced game? Maybe not. So I looked to lean to the Little Rock side a little bit, and they're coming off a loss to Winthrop, although that was their first Division I game of the season. Winthrop is actually pretty good this season, it's looking like. So Little Rock, I think, was a decent-sized underdog in that game, too. But I would look to fade Arkansas State because of the spot there. Let me see. And then, I don't know, I was going to mention UL Monroe because I think Rice might be in not the greatest spot. They're up from 8 to 8.5. Oh, man. Can I get all of these done here? I don't even know. I'm like just hitting I'm hitting shortcuts now. And I'm getting like the Microsoft Edge browser coming up and stuff. I don't even know what I'm even seeing here. Rice, they're off of, what are they off of here? They Played Florida State pretty tough, which I don't know if Florida State's a little bit down as a program right now. This is in the Mattress Firm Battleground, man. Sponsored by Mattress Firm. They're like lawyers, but for mattresses. I have no idea. But Rice played Florida State pretty tough. This is a big step-up game for Rice. I mean, who's Rice? But, of course, this is actually kind of a semi-home for Rice, though, because Rice is in Houston, and this game was in Houston. But Florida State was able to get out of there with the win and non-cover as a 9.5-point dog. Rice played pretty well there. Florida State shot a little bit low from three, 26.3, kind of unsustainably low. So maybe that game looks a little bit better for Rice than it should have. So coming off a big performance like that, my reaction would be to fade them. UL Monroe still looking for a win here, but of course they weren't expected to beat LSU. And then losing to Tulane, I mean, I think they were an underdog in that game too, even though I think UL Monroe considers themselves to be the little brother in that matchup between those two Louisiana schools. But maybe UL Monroe will show up a little bit more for this one. Rice coming off a bigger performance there, so that's what I look for there in that one. And then I was looking at Cal Baptist real quick. I have like a notepad. I'm like, I'm going to talk about all these games, but I still have to talk about every one of my plays. Where is Cal Baptist here? Oh, I was looking at the wrong day. That would help, wouldn't it? UC Riverside is coming off two big games to open the season, man, where they played at Oregon. I think these are both road games. You can go look to make sure they weren't neutral site. But I think if it says at, then it was definitely a road game. They played at Oregon and only lost by 15, and then they only lost by 6 to BYU. Even though this game was actually way out of hand, and they kind of just crawled back into it and made it look kind of cosmetic. BYU probably just kind of let up near the end, which I think BYU did that last year too a couple of times, just not totally paying attention. But it is still a third straight road game. Even though Riverside is now stepping down in class to face Cal Baptist, Baptist may consider themselves to be a little brother in this one in the state of California and may step this up a little bit here in Riverside. That was still a really big effort against BYU, and they didn't really go away in that game at the very least. Although Cal Baptist is 2-0, but they played some easier opponents and barely beat both of them, Incarnate Word and Kennesaw. So not great looking wins there for Cal Baptist, but they may have their eyes set on this game because it is that California, at least it's an in-state, like, bigger brother there. So I do like the Cal Baptist side a little bit there. Cal Baptist is up from 3 to 3.5. People might look at this and think, even though Cal Baptist is 2-0 and Riverside is 0-2, if people look at who they play, they might be thinking, oh, Riverside has faced a way more difficult schedule, though, which is true, but maybe think that Riverside is the better team. But I think these teams are about even, which is what the odds makers are kind of telling you here. So Cal Baptist is basically just getting home court here. But in that spot, I kind of lean that way to Cal Baptist. What's up, Nate? I'm spurging out, man. I'm going fast. Let's go to my actual plays here. I have 4 college basketball plays, 1 in the NBA, and then I got to talk about NHL and college football. And hopefully I get this done quick. Binghamton plus 12.5 is my first play. In this battle of New York teams between Binghamton and Fordham. I think Fordham is kind of in a sandwich spot here, or at the very least a letdown spot. They've dropped from minus 13 to minus 12.5. Even though Fordham is clearly the better team, I mean, they're in the more difficult conference. They've faced the more difficult schedule so far. They're, I believe, still in the A10, and Binghamton is in the American East. So Fordham is no doubt the better team, better conference, that has faced a really difficult schedule so far. At St. John's, they got blown out, and then at Seton Hall. But this game, they upset Seton Hall on the road, man. That's a pretty big win, man, over a New York, New Jersey team like that. And Fordham didn't even shoot well in this game, and they still won the game. I don't know how that happened, because based on the statistics, it seems like that's kind of a misleading result. Based on the statistics, Seton Hall out-shooting them. Turnover battle was close. Seton Hall out-rebounded them a little bit. It looks like a game that Seton Hall should have won in a somewhat close game. But either way, I mean, this is a 10.5-point spread here, and Fordham was able to pull off that upset. But Seton Hall, man, they're playing a lot of ugly, like, slow-paced, low-scoring games so far. The Seton Hall team, even though they're a Big East team, I mean, they don't look good so far. Playing these New Jersey, New York teams, I mean, look at these scores. Just playing both games in the 50s so far, where they're kind of catchable because of that. Fordham, I think that's going to put them in a letdown spot. I mean, you just beat a Big East team. Now you have to face Binghamton, who they're an upstate New York team. It's kind of like whatever. And then Fordham does have their cross-city rival, if you want to call it that, in Manhattan up next, where those are teams that are close to each other, man. I think they both play in Manhattan. So that's, I think, actually kind of a bigger game than this Binghamton game is, even if Manhattan is down over in the MAAC conference over there. I think Fordham actually may be slightly in a sandwich spot here because that's who their opponent is next. And they probably know Manhattan is probably gunning for them because I think Manhattan considers themselves to be the little brother in that matchup there. In Binghamton, Fordham might overlook them and be in a letdown spot after this. Binghamton, as at the very least an in-state, maybe a little brother. But Binghamton is also battle-tested, man. Even though they didn't play that well in these games, they played Penn State and Miami so far. So they have not played cupcakes so far. So Binghamton's sitting at 1-2. Yeah, I mean, they beat a non-D1 team, but the Division I teams they faced are difficult. So this is actually a step down in class for Binghamton off of this. And because Miami blew them out and the game wasn't close, I don't really think Binghamton's going to be in any sort of like hangover spot coming off of that or anything like that. I think that was a respectable performance at the very least for Binghamton. I mean, they were not expected to win that game or anything like that. And it wasn't close enough that I think they're going to be hung over for this. So Fordham coming off the much bigger max effort where they won, I think dramatically actually on like a win right at the buzzer against Seton Hall. So when you come off a game like that, you're in an A10 team and you beat a Big East team at the buzzer like that on their own floor as a big underdog, I think you're going to be in a letdown spot. So I'm taking Binghamton plus 12.5 in that one. Next up, Georgia minus 11.5. These are all double-digit spreads for my games here, and this is the only favorite out of them. I'm going to go with Georgia here. This is a game where I think oh, and by the way, Binghamton, I think all those teams kind of play slower pace, by the way, so I'll just throw that out there as far as, let me just look real quick, actually. So I don't think that the pace really matters as much. Binghamton is a slow-tempo team. Seton Hall is a ridiculously slow-tempo team this year and really doesn't have much of an offense at all. But neither does Binghamton. So Binghamton's just bad all around. But Fordham actually plays slightly faster tempo than those two, but still kind of in the bottom half tempo-wise. And Fordham actually has a pretty bad offense too, so you don't want a team with a bad offense laying points like that, like Fordham laying that many points if you're a team that doesn't have a great offense. Not really a great recipe for covering a big number. All right, North Florida at Georgia. North Florida, I went against them in this Charleston Southern game, much to my own detriment, because they were coming off winning against an SEC team, South Carolina, pulling off a big upset at South Carolina. I don't know how they pulled this off. I mean, statistically, the game was actually at least slightly in favor of North Florida there, and they came off that, and they didn't suffer a letdown. They beat Charleston Southern, who is an inferior team, but although, again, that might actually show you something. Maybe this North Florida team is actually pretty dangerous right now, but then they went into Georgia Tech, and they beat them in this ridiculously high-scoring game. So now I think the public might be looking at this North Florida team and thinking there's going to be value and taking them as a dog here, because, I mean, look at this. They beat South Carolina and Georgia Tech, both on the road, scored over 100 points in this game. They really pulled away in the second half and just kind of dominated this game, but they also shot kind of absurdly from the floor, 53.6. I don't know that they're going to be able to do that again. Yeah, I think this North Florida team is indeed actually better than we think that they are, but I don't know if they can continue to sustain an effort like this, man, against an actual good team. This is not Charleston Southern this time, even though I think South Carolina is the best team they faced so far. Georgia is at least better than Georgia Tech is. Georgia Tech is not a great basketball program right now, even though they're considered, I know they have that like history, so people might think they're the better basketball team over Georgia, but that's not the case right now. Georgia's coming off a couple of easy wins to start the season. They do have Georgia Tech up next, but I don't know if they're going to be really looking ahead to that, maybe, because it is still that Georgia rivalry game. And Georgia still might consider themselves to be the littler brother in that matchup, maybe just because it is in basketball. But the way North Florida's been playing, I don't think Georgia's going to overlook this North Florida team at this point, man. And North Florida, I think at some point they got to kind of run out of steam here. This here is going to be a second straight road game. They have to go to Athens. That's not going to be easy. They have to, play another step-up game. I don't know how they can continue max effort after max effort like this and play as double-digit underdogs in so many games in a row and keep pulling it off like this. And after a game where both teams are going up and down the court and scoring just ridiculously in this game, I think that North Florida is going to run out of gas here, so that would be my guess. So I am on Georgia in this one. And looking at the tempo discrepancies in this one, Georgia, I mean, they play a somewhat slower tempo to some extent. They're kind of in the middle of the pack tempo-wise. They're actually a decently balanced team. They're not a great team, but they play decently on both sides of the ball at the very least. They have balance, although Georgia has actually been one of the luckier teams. If you look at KenPom's luck index, I forgot to talk about luck index. He does have Fordham as the second luckiest team in the country right now, so they look like a team that you want to fade right now. And Binghamton is one of the least lucky teams so far, so maybe a team to play on in certain spots there. Let me see here. Is this the second game I'm talking about or the third? It's only the second. Man, I got to get through. I got to get through these quick, man, because I'm trying to mention like everything that I can here in these games. Georgia, let me see here. Georgia, yeah, they're up in KenPom's luck at 26, so they've been lucky so far as well. But Georgia Tech, they play a much faster tempo than Georgia does, so Georgia might try to slow this game down a little bit. Georgia's not a slow tempo team by any means, but Georgia Tech is really a team that likes to push the pace. And North Florida is also a team that's been really pushing the pace up tempo as well, so Georgia might be able to slow the tempo down, even though I know you tend to want to lay points like I did yesterday with Florida when it's going to be a clash in tempo, and the team that's laying points is the fast tempo team like Florida yesterday. But still, I think that if Georgia can slow this pace down and kind of throw North Florida out of their game, they might be able to slow this North Florida offense down, and they might be able to still score because North Florida's defense is not very good. They're much more of an offensive team. Georgia is still actually better on both sides of the ball, and North Florida is still up there in KenPom's luck index too, ranked at 44. So it's not like they've been an unlucky team according to KenPom or anything like that. And KenPom's luck index basically is like, are you overperforming, like based on what your statistics have actually been so far, basically. But he's saying both of these teams have. But I think North Florida runs out of steam here, so I like Georgia. Next one is going to be back to the underdogs. Sam Houston State plus 15.5 in this one. What's up, Urjo? Which NHL team is the dark horse? I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that. I'll try to get back to you on that. What's up, Nancy? I mean, Winnipeg is not a dark horse now, but they're the team that's come from out of nowhere and is playing like really well so far this season. I mean, dark horse, I mean, maybe the New Jersey Devils. The Devils are still kind of flying under the radar, and I think they're actually a pretty dangerous team. So maybe that's the way that I would go with that answer right now. All right, yeah, North Florida, yeah. So I talked about that. Sam Houston State, let's talk about this one. Sam Houston, let me see. Georgia, by the way, has gone up from 9 to 12 now, so this line is shooting up, so it does look like there is money coming in. Shooting up like a drug addict. The odds makers, it looks like the actual money is coming in and playing this Georgia side, so you would want to play it before it gets totally out of control, because I think KenPom has that game around 10 or 11, so don't want it to get too crazy there. But it looks like the money is pouring in on the Georgia side there. It looks like the money is agreeing with all of my plays here, by the way, which is one of the things that kind of factored into what I'm doing here. Baylor has ticked down from 16.5 to 15. We're fading Baylor. I know it's difficult to do, but I don't think this Sam Houston team is that bad. I mean, they've been a decent basketball program some of these years. Baylor is ranked, obviously, at 12, but Baylor, I mean, yes, they're very battle-tested, but I think they're in a letdown spot here, and Sam Houston's in a situation where they're an in-state little brother here at the very least, so it's a type of game where Sam Houston's playing one of the big boys in the state of Texas, and they're going to want to play a good game, whereas Baylor might actually overlook them a little bit because of what they've come off of. Baylor started the season up in Spokane and got absolutely embarrassed by Gonzaga, even though Gonzaga is a very good team. Baylor got absolutely wrecked in that game. And then Baylor came out of that, and they had a nice bounce back, beating Arkansas, another ranked team. So Baylor's coming off a couple of step-up games. This was like a full-effort game that was pretty close all the way down to the end there, all the way down the stretch there. Baylor really did not turn the ball over much in this game, maybe kind of a ridiculously low turnover number there. So I think Baylor could be in a letdown spot coming off that big game over Arkansas, man. It's basically as simple as that, and Sam Houston's a little brother here. Sam Houston started the season playing against a pretty good Nevada team and played pretty respectably on the road there, only losing by 16. That's not a bad result, really. And then they came out of that playing a second straight road game and wiped out Tarleton State, who Tarleton State was actually decent last year over in the WAC, even though I think they overperformed a bit and they kept winning in situations where they shouldn't have won. But blowing them out certainly is not a bad performance by any stretch of the imagination from Sam Houston there. So that's a pretty good game for them. Yes, they are playing a third straight road game here, but this is the game they're going to have circled, man, on their schedule early in the season. This is the one like big conference opponent they have on the schedule all year, actually, besides Indiana, sorry. But this is at least this is probably the biggest for them anyway, though, because it is a team that's in the state of Texas as well. So I think Sam Houston's going to show up for this one. So I like Sam Houston to play well in this one and maybe get in the number here, even though Baylor is good. Baylor is a team that plays really slow tempo, too. Very slow tempo. So Gonzaga plays ridiculously fast tempo. So that kind of fast at the very least. So that kind of threw Baylor out of their element in that game, I think. So Baylor had a much easier time against Arkansas, who is a fast tempo team as well, but not as fast as Gonzaga. And it was back at home for Baylor. Or I think was it at home? I don't even know. I think it was back at home for Baylor. So Baylor at least had a better chance to implement their style there. Yeah, so Baylor, they are at home here as well, but as a very slow tempo team, you don't really want to be laying a huge number like that because a slow tempo team means it's going to be a low scoring game. Sam Houston does play a little bit faster, but not really fast. They're like in the upper half tempo wise at the very least. But yeah, Baylor, because they play so slow, they might not be totally equipped to cover a giant number like this, playing a slow tempo game like this that may be a little bit lower scoring. So we're gonna go with Baylor in that, or excuse me, with Sam Houston State in that one. And yeah, it's a total that's like not ridiculously high at the very least at 148. Capitals are the dark horse. I don't know. I think they're one of those teams kind of like Winnipeg where we see what they're doing, man. Their record is good right now. So I think right now they're not a question mark right now. People are seeing that they are good. So I think they have been exposed as a good team. Let me see. And then the last one is Texas A&M-CC, Texas A&M Corpus Christi, plus 16.5. This is a sandwich spot for whoever they're playing against. Let me see. New Mexico. New Mexico's down from 16.5 to 16. New Mexico's a team that they like to push the pace as well. I think Ken Baum has them way up in luck index. I didn't look at luck index in that Baylor game. Baylor is the number 9 in luck right now, by the way, and Sam Houston all the way down at 308. So that's another one of those games where you're looking at Baylor. It looks like Ken Baum has them ranked way high in luck index, so maybe their results have been a little bit better than they should be, despite getting blasted by Gonzaga. So I don't know, but he's got Sam Houston down near the bottom in the luck index. And in this one, New Mexico, he has, I think, at number 2 in luck, or maybe number 1 in luck. Is that what he has? Yeah, he has them at, number 1 in tempo. Sorry, that's what it is. They're ridiculously fast. He has them at 132 in luck, so never mind. I thought he had them, he has both of these teams actually in the 130s in luck, but both of these teams are fast tempo teams, though, even though New Mexico is one of the fastest tempo teams out there. I think that's going to lead to New Mexico maybe just being out of gas, man. I mean, New Mexico's coming off a big win over a ranked UCLA team that's been good the last couple of years. That's a really good win for New Mexico. And up next, they have a ranked Big East team in St. John's. I think New Mexico might overlook a Southland team in Texas A&M-CC here, man. This looks like kind of a classic sandwich spot to me. And with New Mexico playing fast-paced games like this over and over again, they're a team that could run out of gas a little bit, too, in a situation like this, having to come off a big game like this. So I'm going to look to the Texas A&M-CC side here. They're coming off a game where they at least got right, and they're battle-tested at the very least, because they played Purdue to open the season, and Purdue kind of in that championship hangover spot there, but they only lost by 17 to Purdue, so that doesn't look that bad. And then they came out of that, and they won easily against a non-Division I team, but I think that's going to help them because that's going to give them some momentum, man. Like, I don't think you want to come into this game not having any wins, but now you have a win, even though it was against a bad team. You did what you were supposed to do. You won. Now you kind of can use that game as like a tune-up and to kind of give you some momentum going forward. So I like the spot for Texas A&M Corpus Christi way better than for New Mexico here. And Texas A&M-CC is not a bad team. I think they're probably second to McNeese in the Southland Conference. So I'm grabbing those points with Texas A&M-CC in that one for all those reasons. Moving over to NBA. Let's see what we got. NBA, I'm just going to try to make this quick, I think. Even though we do have a few bigger games here, I'll just point out quickly. Mavs-Warriors is a big game on the slate here. Warriors are 2.5-point favorite at home. 63% of the cash on their side, with the tickets evenly split 50-50. So the cash disparity looks like it is on the side of the Warriors, but I might hesitate to actually want to grab the Warriors here because the Warriors are coming home. They're returning home from a road trip, man, and a very successful one where they beat Boston and Oklahoma City. So I would not really want to play Golden State in a return home spot, even though they are going to be focused, though, still probably on the Western Conference champs. So it's that might alleviate those return home distractions there that they might fall into otherwise, because when teams return home from road trips, like I say, they can be very distracted, but when their opponent is Dallas, that might not be the case. Dallas has the much worse record, but I think Golden State is kind of overperforming right now. But Dallas is coming out of elevation, having played a tough game against Denver as well, and 2 tough games in a row against Phoenix and Denver. So even though they should be focused as well against this Golden State team, they're also in a tough spot. So, and this is a game, because it's such a big matchup, you probably won't see these teams be resting players either, so the over might actually make sense in this game. It's down, though, from 230, or no, it's up from 232 to 232 and a half, juice to the under, so a slight move up there. 83% of the tickets and only 64% of the cash on that over. So maybe it makes sense to look towards the over there, because you're going to be looking at, like, those teams are probably going to be playing all their best players because it's a big matchup, but it's a combination of that and the teams not being very well rested. So that looks like a situation where an over would make sense with the defense is being gassed. I don't do a whole lot with NBA totals. My actual NBA play is a side, of course, and it's the Detroit Pistons plus 1.5. This line has gone up on the Heat from 1 to 1.5, but 60% of the tickets on the Pistons. I don't know, man. I don't know if the Pistons are really going to be getting the public action, but either way, we see 84% of the cash on the Pistons right now. So it looks like more of the cash is coming in on the Pistons right now. And, of course, I'm saying I agree with where that cash is right now. I think this is a bad spot for Miami, but I'm kind of expecting that Miami's going to wind up being the public team here. But either way, we do see the cash discrepancy going against them right now. But, I mean, is the public really going to be coming in on Detroit up against Jimmy Butler? Are those Jimmy Butler hurt or something? I don't know. Is he playing? I have no idea. I don't know what the injury situation is. Yes, he's actually out until November 15th. So my mistake on that one. So Butler is actually out, but I think he's been out for a couple of games now. Let's see. Yeah, he's been out since the 8th. So actually, I think that makes this play even better. I wasn't even paying attention to that. So he's been out since the 8th. So Miami is coming off a game where they were in the injured player theory spot because Butler got hurt against Denver. So then Miami, first game without him, they stepped up their game big time and they beat Minnesota. So now they're coming off an upset win over Minnesota, and now they're playing the second game without Butler. And in that second game, man, you kind of have that. So you played really well in that injured player theory spot. This is classic, man. And now they're coming out of that game, and usually the team takes a little bit of a step back, especially if that game was like a big game. And this is a big upset over a good Minnesota team. So for all those reasons, I think Miami's going to take a step back here. Second game now without Butler and coming off a big win over Minnesota. And they do have Indiana up next, which I know Indiana's not playing that well this season, but they were still a team that made the conference finals last year. So Miami really might be in a bad spot here and could have overlooked Detroit. And Detroit has the worst record, too, so I still don't see how the public is not coming in on the Miami side in this one. Detroit in a much better scheduling situation here, man. They're just staying at home, and they're probably going to be focused on this Miami team coming in, even though Miami is without Butler. I mean, it's the Miami Heat. I mean, they've been good over the last few years, so Detroit, I think they tend to be focused in most games just because they are not a very good team. They're coming off a tough game, though, against Houston, but I mean, there was only a game where they were 3.5-point dogs at home. Still, they're staying at home. They're not traveling. I think they're in the much better spot to be focused here with the Miami Heat coming in. So give me the Detroit Pistons in that one, plus 1.5. So I think the Pistons might be able to win that game outright. So give me that one. And if the public doesn't know the Butler is out, they might be looking at that and thinking it looks pretty easy to play Miami here. Even without Butler, it kind of looks easy to take Miami there against a Detroit team that's just not very good. On hockey, I don't have any place here, but we can just point out a couple of the bigger games here real quick. Winnipeg and the New York Rangers is a huge game, with the Rangers down from -130 to -124. 68% of the tickets on them, and 58% of the cash over on the other side of Winnipeg. People are going to, I'd probably tout this as like a potential Stanley Cup Finals preview here, although who knows if both of these teams are going to actually wind up getting there or not. But the odds makers are giving the Rangers basically only home ice, kind of telling you these teams are basically evenly matched, and the cash is coming in on the Winnipeg side. I mean, I don't really see much of a situation here, but this is a huge matchup, man. Winnipeg is, I mean, they're just rolling, and they're coming off another big win over Dallas, but they're starting a road trip here and facing the Rangers, so it does still look like it's a focus spot for Winnipeg, even if they are coming off a big win. Starting a road trip against one of the best teams in hockey, you're probably not going to be unfocused. And the Rangers had this weird one-game trip out to Detroit where they shut them out, and they're just coming back home now. They have nothing up next either, so both teams are going to be focused in this game, man. This could be a good game. So obviously I'm going to sit on the sidelines here for that one. And that's, I guess, really the one game to really talk about there. I mean, that is the big game on the board there. I'm not playing anything on the hockey slate here, but I just figured I would talk about maybe that one game because it's a nice big matchup early on. Maybe a fun game to watch. College football, we got Maction. Before I get out of here, I'm going to try to finish this. I mean, do I even want to talk about these games? I'm not getting involved in any of these. Central Michigan and Toledo is the first game up. Toledo's up from 14 to 14.5. Central Michigan has 56% of tickets and 70% of the cash. So the cash discrepancy coming in, taking the points with Central Michigan. I mean, the total's kind of low, but it's up from 49 to 51.5. 87% of tickets and 96% of the cash on the over in this one. I'm not sure that I see it as far as an over, man. I mean, I don't know. Central Michigan, I mean, they're in a spot where they played Bowling Green fairly tough in their last game. They came in under the number, but that was because Central Michigan's quarterback got hurt in this game. Their third-string quarterback, Jefferson, got hurt, and then they put in Jaden Glasser. So they're on their fourth quarterback of the season now, and he got them a touchdown late in the game to get them within that number and cover the spread. So Glasser might actually be better, but who knows, because that was in garbage time. So maybe Bowling Green just kind of let up in that game. I don't know. But Central Michigan, I mean, they're still not a very good team. I mean, they're at the point where they have to win out to become bowl eligible, and they probably know that that's not going to happen at this point. So after that big game over Bowling Green, maybe they won't actually be in a great mental spot coming into this game against Toledo. I don't know, but Toledo just clinched bowl eligibility, but that was a close game against Eastern Michigan, man. And they probably should have won by more because they were a 10.5-point favorite. So I think Toledo might still be focused here, man, because Toledo, they're still not out of it as far as making the MAC championship. I mean, they need to get kind of lucky and have some of these teams fall down, but Toledo is still one game out, and then depending on the tiebreakers with 3 games left, coming off a game where they almost lost to Eastern Michigan, which is a game that they really should not have been close to losing against Eastern Michigan. I think Toledo actually might have reason to show up in this game for those reasons, so I'm not going to play this game. So Toledo might actually be more the correct side here, and the line has moved up a little bit, even though the cash discrepancy looks like it's on Central Michigan for now, but Central Michigan has a little bit of the public side of the tickets as well. But Toledo, yeah, in my opinion, does still have reason to show up. Like, getting that bowl eligibility, Toledo has their sights set higher, man. They come into the game, into the season expecting to be in the MAC championship pretty much year in and year out at this point, and they could still get there. So, whereas Central Michigan, I know that technically they're not eliminated from bowl eligibility, but I think they're pretty much thinking that they probably are. Western Michigan and Bowling Green. This is a game, Bowling Green's up from 7 to 8.5. I like the Bowling Green side in this one. 64% of the cash on them, 63% of tickets on the other side of Western Michigan. Total up from 57.5 to 59. 85% of tickets and 95% of the cash on the over. I might actually agree with the over in this one, more so than the other game. With Central Michigan, I mean, they have just an anemic offense too, man. So they might not have a lot of offense going on in that game. Toledo, at the very least, can throw the ball a bit and may be able to do so against Central Michigan's defense there. This game, Western Michigan, the problem with them is they play no defense. That's why I went against them last week with Northern Illinois. I think Western Michigan is still overrated, and I think Western Michigan, they do have a good offense, even though Bowling Green is the only one of these teams that plays defense at all. Bowling Green has a pretty decent offense and a pretty decent defense. So Bowling Green is the much better team. They're the more balanced team. So I do like Bowling Green in this game. I think Western Michigan's just overrated. Western Michigan, they won these 4 games in conference against the weakest opponents in the conference, basically. Ball State, Akron, Buffalo, Kent State. I mean, those are all bad MAC teams. Those are the absolute bottom of the MAC. Then they ran into, this is why I played Northern Illinois last week or 2 weeks ago, because then they played Northern Illinois or maybe it was last week, I forget. Yeah, they played Northern Illinois and finally played a team that's actually not bad in the MAC, and they lost the game at home. So Western Michigan, I still think they're just thriving off of what their record looks like and the fact that their offense is good. So the public's going to come in and want to take this offense here, with Hayden Wolf at quarterback. But I think Bowling Green might be able to slow them down a little bit because Bowling Green has the way better defense. Western Michigan, these teams are both still fighting to get into the MAC championship, though. So both these teams should show up for that reason. But I just think Western Michigan's really not a very good team, and Bowling Green is the better team here. And Bowling Green should show up in this game. And Bowling Green is still looking for bowl eligibility here. I mean, both of these teams are. They're both sitting at 5 wins, so both teams should show up for that reason, too. And Bowling Green's coming off that kind of lackluster game, I guess, against Central Michigan. But that was bad weather, too. In that game, the MAC games last week were bad weather, and the games tonight look like the weather's not going to be bad in any of these. Bowling Green, I mean, their offense also isn't that much worse than Western Michigan's with Basilak at quarterback there. I mean, they can do some stuff, too, on offense. And against Western Michigan's horrific defense, Bowling Green should have no problem scoring in this game. So I like the over for that reason because you got Western Michigan all offense, no defense. But I like Bowling Green to also cover the spread, and I think that's the preferred look. Maybe the preferred look if you're going to play any of these games. I think Bowling Green minus the points is actually the best out of all of these. But next best, I think, would actually probably be the over in this game. And then Ball State Buffalo is the last game. Probably the least interesting out of all of these. I mean, really, you're giving us Ball State and Buffalo, a low-tier MAC matchup. Buffalo is down from 5.5 to 4.5. 65% of the tickets on them, 77% of the cash on the other side on Ball State. So the market is indicating on the Ball State side. And one thing that I will say is that both of these teams, I think, have kind of improved offensively finally recently. And Ball State, though, I mean, they're coming off some big performances where they upset Northern Illinois. They kind of hung with Vandy in a game where I played Ball State, but that was a bad spot for Vandy. But Ball State played well there. They upset Northern Illinois, and then they played Miami, Ohio pretty tough last week, too. So Ball State, I wouldn't want to play them at this point, man, because they're coming off some big step-up games, and maybe they just won't be able to continue that. And they have Bowling Green up next, too. So Ball State, they probably know they're not going anywhere at this point. So if they're going to show up for any remaining game, it's going to be senior night. That's senior day against Bowling Green, one of the better teams in the conference for their final home game. So Ball State, I mean, that's really what they have left to look forward to. So I'm not going to be taking the points with Ball State in this game, man. Buffalo, meanwhile, needs one win to become bowl eligible. So they could still become bowl eligible actually somewhat easily because their remaining schedule is very weak, and they're coming off an easy win over Akron. So I actually like the Buffalo side in this one. So I don't agree with the market in this one. And Buffalo looks like they've started maybe playing a little better as well. So they got more reason to show up in this game, man, because I think Ball State knows that they're eliminated. Total up from 53.5 to 54, 74% of tickets, 87% of the cash on the over. I don't know how to read the total there, but I think the Buffalo side is actually not a bad way to look in that game, despite what the market is indicating there. Because when you have that team that just needs that one more win to become bowl eligible, and they're playing in prime time at home, they know they can win this game. Ball State coming off a few big step-up games in a row and just weren't able to get it done, and their season is pretty much over with their one remaining game that means something next week, assuming that they're going to lose this game, of course. But Ball State, I think they realistically know they're not going to make a bowl game. So I think that is the situation there. So Buffalo would actually be the lean in that one. Nate, what's up, man? Jets will run out of steam. I don't know, man. I'm not so sure. Yes, Zach, you're going to have to go back and watch the beginning of my video here because I do have a bunch of college basketball. I talked about a bunch of college basketball. Division II teams make money? No idea. Probably not a lot. I mean, they probably still make some. I mean, students at least will go to like the basketball games for their own school. Let me see. Bald State versus Bowling Green. Yeah. I think that matchup already happened, right? I don't know. Did those teams play each other already? I don't know. Zach, yeah. So, yeah, you'll have to go back and watch, but I'm going to get out of here. That's going to do it for me. I'm Tower Gang Toad, of course. My plays, as I'll run it down one more time, Zach, my 4 college basketball plays, you can go back and see the analysis. I'm on Binghamton plus 12.5. This is a huge college basketball slate, man. Georgia minus 11.5. Sam Houston State plus 15.5. And Texas A&M Corpus Christi plus 16.5. This is the biggest college basketball betting card that I've had so far this season. We're in the thick of it now, baby. And then in the NBA, I have the Detroit Pistons plus 1.5. So I want another winning day. Last night was good. I'm on a roll right now, man. I'm up for the year, and hopefully that does not change by the end of the year. I got a decent amount of padding now. We got to avoid having really horrendous days, and better not jinx it here. It better not happen, man. Hopefully we can win again. Peace out, man. Follow the Tower Game podcast. Of course, we'll be back with you tomorrow, Wednesday night, 9:11 p.m. The most offensive podcast out there. Patreon.com/TowerGang to throw us some supporting it. Live pre-show, post-show, bonus content, and hang out in a Telegram with us. Thanks, guys, for hanging out this morning. Peace out. Have a good one, everybody.